Okay, it's been 2 years now, almost, since The Church on Ruby Road aired. Let's have a little look back at the episode and give it a review. I never reviewed it at the time. This channel was created about 2 months after the episode aired, and I just didn't think there was a point in reviewing it, to be honest. I think I covered it in a podcast with irrelevant. Anyway, let's just hop into my thoughts on the episode. But before we do, let's do a little synopsis. We open with the Doctor arriving outside a church, and Ruby's mum drops her off as a baby at the doorstep. Then Ruby is on Long Lost Family asking Davina McCall to find her mum. And she's now playing in a band at a nightclub where the Doctor's having a great time dancing along. Ruby arrives home and her foster mum and Nan are introducing her to the new foster baby. Davina rings up Ruby and says, "Oh, I'm so sorry, we haven't found your mum." She's like, "Hey up, that's no problem, I'm Ruby from Tameside." Davina McCall then gets killed by a Christmas tree. Deja vu. Some goblins then take Lulu Bell, the new baby, and Ruby follows on a ladder where she meets the Doctor. The pair get tied up, but the Doctor breaks them out with this incredibly horrific looking sonic screwdriver. The goblins' version of Prayer is doing a massive sing-song about the baby they're about to eat, but then Doc and Ruby save the day. However, Ruby's foster mum then forgets about Ruby because the goblins went back in time and took baby Ruby from the church, and now she's never existed. But the Doctor puts it all back to normal and the Goblin King gets hot fuzzed. They're all happy and Ruby walks into the TARDIS and it's proper nice and proper cool. And roll credits. But hold on, what's this? Oh, who is this? What? What? And then we actually roll the credits this time. Okay, so to open with, I actually was a really, really big fan of the opening sequence with, you know, the Carol of the Bells, the church, Ruby's mum dropping Ruby off, and the Doctor watching from afar, and the Doctor's voiceover as well, where he's like, "That was the day a traveller came to town." It really felt Doctor Who, and I do feel like it was a good way to open this new era. You know, people think Space Babies was the opening to season 1, but I'd argue it's this. I really was a big fan of this opening for new viewers. I think it was a good fresh start. And it's a good jumping on point. This is a good jumping on point. What happens afterwards completely disregards all of that, but we'll get to that. But the actual Church on Ruby Road whole episode, to me, is a good jumping on point, and especially this intro. It was really, really good in my opinion. I'm a bit in two minds about this next bit. So obviously Davina McCall is there, and Ruby is on Long Lost Family, which is assuming it's that. It's an old British TV programme where people who were foundlings or fostered or adopted and don't really know their birth parents go on this show that's hosted by Davina McCall, and Davina helps them find their birth parents or long lost sons or daughters or grandparents, I don't know, just anyone from their real family that they haven't seen since they were little or since they gave them away, and they want to find them. And this is a really good way of implementing real life into Doctor Who, because there are so many people out there like Ruby who want to find their mum or dad, and it's cool to include foundlings in Doctor Who. And obviously with the most recent news at the time being the Timeless Child, the Doctor is also a foundling, technically, if you want to speak of it like that. So it was good. The Doctor and Ruby later on get a little bonding where they're like, they actually both bond over the fact that they are foundlings, and I really was a big fan of that. Very, very big fan of that. However, a little downside I did have is I wasn't too sold on Davina McCall's acting. It wasn't terrible, but it needed some improvement. But I'm not going to critique because I love Davina. She's class. So, you know, she's not an actor, she's a presenter. So, Davina, you were great. Next up, the Doctor's in the club and he's dancing. When this came out, people were like, you cannot have a gay Doctor dancing. I mean, come on, it's bad enough that he's black and he's gay, but to have the Doctor dancing in a club, like, come on, man. First of all, now Shooties runs over, I can happily sit here and say he is 100% in my top 5 Doctors of all time, and he's number 4. He's my 4th favourite Doctor. Capaldi, Eccleston and Tennant will always be my top 3. That's 4, but then Shooty is definitely my 4th favourite. I absolutely adored him as the Doctor, and this was a great opener to him. Again, it sort of maybe fizzled out along the way, but as an opener, Shooty being this like post-depression Doctor, you know, obviously the bi-generation, 14 was going through therapy, and the post-therapy is 15, who is like, you know, done with all the trauma, he's happy, he's excited, and he's in a club and he's dancing. Really, really, it was a good move in my mind. It was great to have this side to the Doctor, that he's a happy one. You know, he's the one, he's the post-therapy one. And that was a really, really good introduction, in my opinion. Also, the scene where he gets crushed by the giant snowman head, and then the policeman's like, "Oh, what's your name, what's your address?" And he's like, doctor, occupation, not a doctor, address, that blue box over there. It felt very introductionary. That's what I mean. This was a great jumping on point. This should have been the Space Babies. This should have been episode 1. Technically it is, but it's under the specials still. This should have been season 1, episode 1, because this is such a jumping on point. This felt very Eccleston in 2005, when he's like, don't worry about me, and then he does his whole like, the world is spinning but I can feel it speech, and that is exactly the sort of thing I got from this. Although it's not very as much like I am the Doctor, it's still a good introduction to the character of the Doctor, to get people who don't know to get to know. And then there's the introduction to Ruby's foster family, which is Carla and Cherry Sunday. And there's pictures on the fridge of all the kids they've fostered. And it's very wholesome. It's very, very wholesome because, and this might be risky territory, just know I don't mean any harm. And if I do say something that is considered wrong or offensive, call me out on it in the comments so I can learn. But I do like that Ruby, being a white female, is being adopted by Jamaican females. Because in Doctor Who, and in a lot of TV shows, you don't see that happen. And I think if there's a TV show where you could have a mixed family, which is, because it's obvious that Carla has fostered Ruby, we know that, and in all honesty, you can watch that from an outsider and go, well, obviously this girl is not this woman's daughter. But the whole point is that she is, because Carla's been there for Ruby her whole life. She has raised her to be this lovely young woman that she is. And I like that there's a mixed family. I just think I don't know why I like it. It just gives me a warm feeling inside that, because there are people out there who are this. There's white people who have black foster parents, and there are black kids that have white foster parents, and it doesn't really get shown on TV. But now it has, and I was a big fan of that. And I mean, just the personalities, the characters of Carla and Cherry, especially Cherry, like, she is so funny. And I'm very, very glad that there was some representation for that. And Russell is always very good at writing characters, and these are characters that I immediately cared about, Carla and Cherry, and Ruby, in all fairness. And Lulu Bell, the baby. I'm not really sure what happened to her in later series. Like, she just was never mentioned again. But Lulu Bell, another great addition. I think it's nice to see that Carla has still got it in her to foster when she needs to, because kids will always need a home. And from what I've gathered, the Sunday flat seems like a good home to me. I actually really connected with Ruby. Well, I say connected, I've never experienced this, but I felt for her when Davina rings up and is like, we've got no trace of your mother. Which makes no sense at all if you've seen the later series. I mean, we'll get to it, but it literally makes no sense how they can't find her, but anyway, whatever. I liked this because it's very much how we would all react in the situation. It's very much a British thing to, if someone gives you bad news, to just go, oh no, it's fine. No, honestly, don't worry. It's absolutely fine. Like, yeah, which is what Ruby did. And that is how I react when I'm given bad news, because, you don't want to make people feel bad for having to deliver you the truth, but also you are very disappointed. So I felt for Ruby in this, because I could very much see that's how I'd react if I was given this news. Poor Ruby. Then we have the scene where Lulu Bell gets taken by the goblins, which was really, really, really good. I really, really liked it. Ruby and the Doctor meet when Ruby's like hanging off of the goblin ship's like ladder. The Doctor jumps on it with her and gives her anti-mav gloves, which I can only help. I can't stop my brain thinking this is a nod to Rose Tyler. Obviously, the way she exited was she got sucked off. Hang on. She got sucked in by a void off of a like handle that she was holding on to, and if only she had anti-mav gloves to hold her on. I think that might have been a little nod to that, and I was a big fan. And now we have the moment that I immediately fell in love with Ncuti. I mean, it did happen in The Giggle. I was like very, very sold on his Doctor in The Giggle, but this is his first episode technically as the Doctor himself without David Tennant by his side. And this is where I got sold on him, when he's tied up on the goblin pole, well, the ship pole with Ruby. He's like, oh, I had a long hot summer with Harry Houdini, and he does like loads of techno babble, and it really made me feel like this is the Doctor. This guy that I'm watching right now, in my head right now, there's no changing it. He is the Doctor, and I'm going to love this incarnation so much. And I did love him in Sex Education, and I was a bit worried going in, am I just going to see this guy as Eric from Sex Education? But now I think I've got the opposite problem. I think now if I go back and watch Sex Education, I'm going to see the Doctor as Eric. Yeah, he did a great job, and I'm very, very sad that he's gone now. But I do love Ncuti, and I am happy that this was such a great episode introduction for him. The Goblin song was one that people was sort of split on. I liked it. I did like it. I did think it was a bit like when it released, the Goblin song released a few weeks before Christmas and before this episode, so everyone was thinking, oh god, what has Doctor Who become? They're singing now? Oh, this is so gay. But actually, I think it fit the episode. You know, the goblins were singing because they were having a feast on this baby, which, by the way, there's about 500 goblins and one little baby. I don't know what they're all planning on doing. I'm pretty sure they're all feeding it to the Goblin King anyway, but yeah, the Goblin King is like about to eat this baby, and all the goblins and Janice are like, you know, singing the song about eating the baby, and they start seasoning her, and Ruby's like, they're seasoning the baby. It was really cool. I did like it. And then the Doctor and Ruby sing in, and as their way to escape, they join in, and that was also very, very, very Doctor Who. Say what you like, I loved it. But then boom, crack, something changes in the air. What has changed? Well, Carla and Cherry no longer remember Ruby, which is an ongoing theme of this era. But yeah, they don't remember Ruby. Who's Ruby? I ask. Well, Carla asks, and the Doctor's like, Ruby, your foster daughter. And she's like, no, never had a Ruby. It's all depressing round here. Because Ruby was never in their lives, because the goblins went back in time and took Ruby from the church, and she never existed. So the Doctor goes back to the church. He goes to the church where Ruby was dropped off, and he saves her again, which is really, really cool. I liked the cold twist. It was very cold, you know, Carla being this happy character to then being all depressed, being like, there's no one called Ruby here. Really, really nice. And the way it was rounded up with the Doctor going back in time and saving it was really clever. Really clever from the RTD. Big fan. What I wasn't a big fan of is the Hot Fuzz reenactment, where the steeple of the church goes through the through the Goblin King's chin, like in Hot Fuzz. I felt it was a bit giving the wrong message of what the Doctor does. I feel like it could have worked as like his second Christmas special, but for his first Christmas special, there needed to be some peacemaking with the goblins, like in the Christmas Invasion, where the Doctor gives the Sycorax a chance to escape. He should have said to the goblins, you need to get out of here, like, otherwise I'm going to stop you. And then maybe if they didn't go, he could Hot Fuzz them. But there wasn't any confrontation there. And that's what's been missing from this era of Doctor Who, in my opinion. There's never a lot of, let's be fair now, let's do what's best for you, and let's also do what's best for you. I feel like there's a lot in this era has been, no, you're really bad because you're doing bad things, and I'm going to side with the good people now, which is not what Doctor Who was about. Doctor Who was about everyone getting the best outcome for them, regardless of what they've done, and hoping that will change their actions in the future. So I was a bit gutted we didn't get that, but it was not that big of a deal. They're all back to normal, and the Doctor confronts Mrs. Flood. Hi, Mrs. Flood. Hi there. What you doing? I must say, I love Anita Dobson very, very much. Very, very much. And she sold me when I watched this for the first time. Obviously not just with the whole, never seen a TARDIS before, because that was odd. That was very weird. Very weird. I was very, like, is she the master? Probably, but, you know, who knows? And I was sold on the mystery. I was. I mean, even if it was a bit gutting in the end, that this woman we've been thinking, who is she, just got sidetracked as some big character's assistant. I wasn't a fan of that at all. And there was not really any payoff to her either. But she is out there somewhere, so who knows, maybe one day something will come out of it. Then Ruby enters the TARDIS, and unfortunately this leaves it on a bad note for me, because this is the first TARDIS entrance of this new era, and it was a bit naff. She just sort of walked in and went, whoa. Who are you? That's it. She didn't, like, there was no bigger on the inside. She did walk around it, I suppose, which Russell's like, we've not had since Billie Piper in 2005, but we have. Every companion literally walks around it before they go in. Because you would, wouldn't you? You would walk around the box to think, is this a trick? But yeah, there was never it's a big on the inside moment, which was a bit like, come on, Ruby, it's the first one. It's the first one. It's important to get these things right, but it's whatever. It's whatever. But yeah, that's that. That's the episode. I mean, yeah, obviously they've never seen a TARDIS before, but I don't need to talk about that because we know how that ends. But yeah, that's that. That's the episode. I was a big fan. Yeah, I liked it. Out of 10, I'm going to give The Church on Ruby Road no, out of 5 I do. Out of 5, I'm going to give The Church on Ruby Road a 4 out of 5. I really liked it. It was just the wrap-up of the Goblin King being steepled. I would have rather like a Sycorax moment where the Doctor's like, I'm going to give you a chance to go away. And then they do go away, and then we see them in the background coming back, and then they get steepled. Don't know. It's not a major thing, but it was definitely better than Joy to the World, in my opinion. Thank you for watching. I'll see you later. Goodbye. Like, subscribe, comment, leave a super thanks, whatever. Appreciate it. Thank you. On to Space Babies.